Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host and keeper, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight are minions DrFunctional.
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Serenity Star 13.
Dogs.
Dogs. Skep.
Hi, everybody.
And I think Geodes will be with us momentarily.
I'm here.
You're there.
Yeah.
I don't know, you look like a kind of gropey Cenk Uyghur in that tiny picture.
Hey, this is just a lovely photo of a couple. It's a water buffalo and whatever is clinging to it, you know. So
okay.
I hate the man. I hate chunky yogurt, but I can't really fault him for the position of the hand.
That to me is so obviously shopped. I'm sorry, the bottom part of his body is completely the wrong size relative to the top part.
That's what he looks like.
He doesn't look like that.
That's what he looks like.
Well, it may very well
defended the photo. She validated it.
That's what I was about to say. Even if it is fabricated, they validated it, so it's canon.
People make me sad. How is everybody today?
Mm-hmm.
I feel fortunate that I don't obsess over chunk yogurt.
It's kind of, I mean, it's pretty easy to be annoyed by that guy.
Yes.
I mean, unless you make a conscious effort just to not look at that part of YouTube, he's just kind of everywhere. Like a thin film of unctuousness that just
only my decades of Zen training prevent me from wanting to kill him.
We have a request to show the photo again.
Oh, sure. Well, this isn't showing the photo, but at least it gives people a better idea.
Yeah.
So essentially what we're supposed to see here is that I guess on a night out on the town, Chunk decided to lovingly grope Anna's right buttocks.
Wearing skinny jeans with a gut that's bigger than Anna. Which again, I can't fault him for doing what he's doing.
Yeah, he went full Cuomo on her there. It was nice.
But you'd hit Kasparian.
Yeah, I mean, in my younger years, yeah. But why go out for McDonald's when I've got, prime beef at home?
I don't think Anna Kasparian is a bad looking woman. She may be annoying in a lot of ways, but she's not unattractive.
Yeah, but it's knowing what's between the ears,
Well, that's a whole different thing.
Worse.
Yeah.
You kind of got to talk to him a little bit.
Besides, the part of me between my ears is not thinking about what's between her ears.
Well, yes,
okay.
that is a way to go approach life.
Yes, you certainly can do that. MotZ.
No, she. I remember seeing her in the past, thinking that she wasn't quite so terrible, but after everything sort of changed after Trump got elected, and they just became really hard to deal with. They became very unpleasant because they were salty and angry for 4 years.
Trump really brought the worst out in some people.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Keith Olbermann? The time he got on and said that anyone who voted for Trump belongs in prison. He wants to see the prisons full of Trumpers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just crazy talk.
That was a guy who was, ostensibly a pretty serious sports commentator at one time.
Yeah.
Well, he had a pretty good thing going during the Bush administration, because the Bush administration had a lot of problems going on. We were invading countries that didn't have weapons of mass destruction. The Daily Show did a great joke on them where they showed Bush wearing like a racing outfit, where it had all the patches with the sponsors.
Yeah,
it just said Halliburton and all different. There was some awfully suspicious stuff going on there. So he was pretty much in his element. So was Jon Stewart. Yeah. It was a great time to be Keith Olbermann. But he kind of lost his shit in 2016 at the end of it.
No doubt.
A lot of these people just went from being they just went completely nuts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they were perfectly willing to be gracious when they thought Hillary was going to win. I'm trying to remember who it was who was making comments about kumbaya, everything's going to be fine, we're still going to like you, we're all going to be Americans, and then 2 hours later, wait, what the hell happened here? It's an outrage. It's an outrage. I think Lacey Green is one of the ones I was thinking of. This was before she was magically cured of her liberalism by Chris Ray Gun's penis.
I was about to say there was a lot of them that were like that.
There were a lot of them. Can you think of another one, Serenity?
I think John Oliver was one of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, John Oliver lost his shit.
Yeah,
John Oliver was cured by Chris Reagan's penis?
God, I hope so.
Happen.
But more of like, he was the one, and Rachel Maddow, like someone said, was one of them, where they are all just like, this is fine. We understand, because I think they thought the population was going to be such a small number that support that they were going to be like, well, we can just like ignore these people and we can just like basically do what they do in high school, which is like ostracize them out. And then it was a lot more people than they realized, and then they all lost their damn minds. Jimmy Fallon didn't. Jimmy Kimmel, I think, didn't quite say the same thing, but he has said something similar. But I know Anna Kasparian did it too.
Did what?
Said like, oh, this is okay. It's not that big of a deal. We'll be Americans after this. And then we all know the rant that happened afterward. The greatest piece of comedy to ever watch still is watching the Young Turks.
TYT meltdown, yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful. Mwah.
I have a copy of that. I downloaded it just in case it ever disappeared from the YouTubes. Sometimes I like to watch it. It cheers me up. that moment of realization when Chunk goes, holy shit, this is suddenly got serious. Because it was like a party when it started out.
Yeah, he says something like, incoming.
Yeah, the room just got quiet. Yeah, and then Jimmy Dore, the spitting cobra of whatever he's the spitting cobra of, he was like the first one to sort of go, reality check, everybody.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
not
pretty messed up.
Yeah.
He's a spitting cobra to Alex Jones. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did a lot of work today. I was very, very busy, so I was a little late coming to the show. I had some work done on my motorcycle, and I accidentally spent more money than I thought I wanted to, having these new springs and modulators put in the front suspension of the thing. Oh my God. And if you have a motorcycle, just get Racetech modulators and springs. the whole character of the bike is completely different. All of the things I hated about the way it kind of wallowed its way into corners and other stuff, it's like, unless you have a high-end motorcycle, just talk to your guy or do it yourself. Racetech modulators and coils. Upgrade your front suspension. It's just like the best money you can spend. Seriously. Okay, that is an unpaid endorsement for Racetech by me. So you guys want to launch into this? I don't know if everybody remembers, there was a big FBI raid of a private P.O. box thing in Beverly Hills several months ago.
Yes, sirree.
Yeah.
And FBI says fortune seized in Beverly Hills raid was criminals' loot. Owners say, where's the due process?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, there were 800 people whose money and valuables were seized during this raid. Federal agents had suspected for years that criminals were stashing loot there. Okay? Suspecting something isn't the same thing as having grounds for a warrant.
Right.
Okay, so the government is trying to confiscate 86 million with an M, in cash and stockpile of jewelry, rare coins, and precious metals taken from about half of the boxes. People are acting like this is a surprise. Why do you think people get safe deposit boxes? To store their valuables in so that they can't just be taken from them at gunpoint with a home invasion robbery. But 6 months after the raid, the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles have produced no evidence of criminal wrongdoing by the vast majority of box holders whose belongings the government is trying to keep. About 300 of the box holders are contesting the attempted confiscation. Ruiz and 65 others have filed court claims saying the dragnet forfeiture is unconstitutional.
Good. Not enough people have filed. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
65.
Prosecutors so far have outlined past criminal convictions or pending charges against 11 box holders to justify the forfeitures. Okay, so because 11 people had some kind of suspicious associations or background or history, you're going after the contents of 800 safety deposit boxes.
Moreover, you're going to keep those, even the people who clearly had honestly owned their stuff. It wasn't part of a criminal enterprise, because they have insufficient evidence to prove that how they acquired it, or how they came to be the owner. It if it doesn't pass muster in the government's eye, they keep your stuff. It's just like that.
Yeah. And let's not forget who it was who championed the bill that allows them to do this. It was Joe Biden.
It was.
Not mentioned in this article, but that's who
We'll be talking about it later, right?
No, we talked about it previously.
Well, that too. The upcoming, we're going to look at anybody who has more than $600 in their account. You don't think that these things are tied together, that they can steal more of your money and make other fraudulent claims? I forgot to mention.
That's more about locking you up. That's more about locking you up.
Well, but some of the stuff...
It gives them another avenue to say, oh, well, hey, you're a cook who makes X amount a year, but you have a savings account with, Y amount of dollars. I don't know if that exactly adds up. There's $2 off, or it just.
You're a politician from California, and you've been in the House for 20 years, and you're worth $78 million. You're going to jail.
Why aren't we looking at these people, which we can already?
No. These people are above reproach. Functional. There's no thing, but there's some funny parts in here which I wanted to point out.
Okay.
Federal agents say the use of rubber bands and other ordinary methods of storing cash were indications of drug trafficking or money laundering. So let me get this straight.
The rubber band man.
You put a rubber band around a stack of money that you've counted, and that means that it's money laundering.
When I was a bank teller, that meant you were a bank teller.
Yeah. Also,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, also, wasn't there a study done talking about like money that exchanged hands, also in terms of like drug money, and how effectively pretty much most money in the world, at least U.S. dollars here, has interacted with that kind of money at some point.
I believe it was the hundreds. If you're going to snort cocaine, show a little class. You got to use at least a Benjamin. This is not my extensive knowledge of drug culture. I've never partaken of nose candy.
I promise you that's absolutely true.
But I believe that is convention, right? To use a 100 or higher.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to pull out an Abe Lincoln and start snorting coke with that.
Look at my Hamilton.
Have monopoly money. You want something with a higher contrast, like a green or a blue. So in our case, it's actually a 20. In your case, it's all your money. But class, show some class. In British pounds, I think it's a 50-pound note. Those are actually the ones that have the most common run-ins with the residue.
Yeah, and the picture of the Queen gets her cut.
Oh,
so that's
all the time.
But if you really want to show class, if you want to do the ultimate, take $1 trillion bill.
That's
we're not all Hunter Bidens, okay?
That's Skep's way of reminding me that we need to stay on track. But we have this first. Sorry. AG Merrick Garland tells FBI to investigate parents who yell at school officials about critical race theory. Now, the obvious thing here is if somebody feels threatened, that's one thing. If somebody's making credible threats, that's already against the law. Mm-hmm. You make credible threats against a government official, you're going to get in trouble.
Yes.
You report it to the authorities. You do not post some vague claims on social media, which a lot of this stuff has been, quote unquote, reported on.
Functional, what do you think is really going on here?
control, complete and utter, unabated control from the federal government.
Well, this is intimidation, is what this is.
Well, specifically, yeah.
You know, which ties into what you're talking about. But this thing here, they say this action comes after the Biden administration received a plea from the National School Board Association to protect schools from the imminent threat, that's a quote, of parents sending threatening letters and cyberbullying school officials. Now, if it doesn't rise to the level of being illegal, what does the freaking FBI have to do with any of this?
Exactly. And even go ahead, Skep.
Well, no, I was just going to say, by their definition, okay, their definition is if a school board member feels intimidated, is the term that they use. Mm-hmm. And they can be intimidated by a parent saying, I really don't like the curriculum that you've introduced. I stand foursquare against it, and I wish you didn't have your job. If you say something like that to them, that can be interpreted, and will be interpreted, I promise, as a threat. That's the same as I'm going to come over to your house and kill you in the eyes of this law.
Yeah, credible threats are one thing. And, you know, in the workplace, I do remember this whole slippery slope that we were on, where, I mean, obviously back in the day, there used to be these kind of gross dudes in the marketing department or sales who would have girly calendars and just generally be kind of gross and disgusting at work, right? And they did sometimes create a really shitty work environment that women didn't want to work in, and it just caused all kinds of problems. And these people were told to cut it out. But we went from dealing with a real problem that everybody saw to this sort of, it's a threat if I feel it's a threat type of mentality. And as soon as we crossed over to this thing where we let the person making the allegation say that they can do mind reading and that somehow meets some legal requirement, that's when we were doomed. Because all of that kind of shit is just nuts. And it doesn't matter if it's workplace harassment or whether it's this, because it's a stupid standard.
The exact problem occurs when you allow a person to say, I feel uncomfortable, whatever that means. If they say, I feel uncomfortable, and that is equated in the eyes of the law as a threat, that's you essentially are you are way over the line of compelling speech, in my opinion.
At the base level of this, you have parents who are concerned, showing their displeasure at these school boards that their children, in their eyes, are being abused, and the curriculum is racist towards these children. I don't necessarily disagree, and it's been my view with this topic that their threats are not real threats. They are, yes, they are threats, but they are a response, a reprisal to these foreseen abuses that they are being ignored on when they bring this stuff up. This is not new. They've been bringing this stuff up for a while now, that this is not stuff that they want their children taught. We did away with that kind of stuff here in Ontario. It's now making a resurgence, but we excommunicated the person responsible for that type of curriculum out of office. And I can't help but have zero sympathy for some of these teachers who teach these types of curriculum with the gall that they do, that it's not racist. It's not racist to teach a young white kid in class that they are worse than a young black kid, or that this Asian kid is better than everybody else because whatever reasons. It doesn't matter what roles they are in. Any immutable characteristics being taught that they're better or worse than another person is just flat wrong. It's wrong ethically, and it's wrong intellectually.
Yep, it's pretty screwed up. But we've got to move on to the next thing. I'm pretty sure we all agree on that. So this is also fairly obvious. U.S. troops have been deployed in Taiwan for at least a year. Really? What a surprise. Is this a surprise to anybody?
No,
No.
they're training. You have guys who are training the airplane mechanics. We sell a lot of airplanes to Taiwan, and those F-16s don't maintain themselves, and so there's a substantial infrastructure that needs training, and they get the latest and greatest stuff. So there's all the updating stuff. That's a big deal in the aircraft business. And that's just the Air Force part. There are other parts of their defense infrastructure that we consult with them very deeply, and we have a lot of troops over there who are mostly in training and advisory capacity.
Yeah, I worry. If we go back to the Falklands conflict, in the Falklands conflict, the Argentinians, essentially their economy was going not very well, and they were politically having a lot of trouble, the ruling party. So they thought, hey, seems like a great time to start a minor war. Well, it wasn't really a full-on war. They weren't bombing each other's capitals or anything like that, but it was a dust-up, right? Yeah. And it was meant to basically raise the political capital of the people in charge there. Now, China is having a lot of problems right now, and I worry that the combination of China having a lot of internal problems, politically, economically, and also the U.S. appearing to be very weak after the whole mess with Afghanistan, and the fact that our military seems to be distracted with things that don't really matter all that much in terms of combat effectiveness. That was a pretty good sentence there that I just made. I said a lot of things that could get us banned without saying anything that'll get us banned. I think that the time is definitely good for the Chinese to make some kind of concrete moves on Taiwan.
It is, but it isn't. There is a channel on YouTube called ADV China. It's two foreign dudes talking about when they lived in China. They talk about the housing bubble, all that kind of stuff from their point of view, and they actually show like these ghost villages, not villages, like cities, and show how they're like after 3 years crumbling apart. At least from the friends that they know and from what they've said on their channel as best they can, considering we all know what we're dealing with. The housing bubble is crumbling in on itself right now. Like their finance bubble is crumbling in on itself. The desperation is so bad that the individual governments for each province are moving city centers almost every 6 months to somewhere new because the buildings are crumbling apart and no one is paying anything. It's not Evergreen, Evergarden, I think is what the name of the company was, or something like that.
No, it's Evergreen.
There's the shipping thing, which is I think Evergreen, and then there was the real estate firm.
Yeah, that's the one.
Which is very similar to Evergreen, and I don't remember, but they're two different things with almost identical names.
But it's not the only company. Obviously, no one's stupid enough to think it's the only company doing that, but there's a lot more companies there that are a lot more in debt. And they're just it's just
Evergrande. That's what it is.
Yeah. And there's another company that's of similar size that's tanking as well.
And they're tanking hard. From the stuff, and I have this is the only source I have is this. I have 2 family members who still live in Hong Kong, who are somewhat protected because they're foreigners, but they're not foreigners of America. They're talking about stuff is getting very scary in Hong Kong because the Chinese are trying to force stuff, trade and money-wise, in Hong Kong that you can't. Like, you literally can't. Evergarden, like, they were literally forcing the employees to pay the company to stay employed. There was one person who supposedly took out a $100,000 loan.
They were basically coercing these people by saying, if you want to have a job, we need you to dig into your money and borrow money from friends and just give us money so that we can make sure that the company's still here to keep you employed.
Yeah.
But
Now,
I think
there's
Serenity's finishing a point here because
I'm sorry.
you're talking.
Sorry.
No, I'm just trying to keep everybody on track here. So you're saying that the situation is bad, which I agree with. What I don't follow is how. See, my thesis is that this makes it more likely that they're going to invade Taiwan, not less.
I think they're going to try, and that's where the unknown is, because they've also, in a roundabout way, threatened to nuke Japan.
Well, let me ask you a question, Serenity. How will they invade Taiwan? Mechanically, what will they do? What will be the mechanics of an invasion?
Yeah, what are people asserting? I mean, about how are they going to try?
That's what
I
I'd
guess
like
is
to know.
I guess what does try look like? Probably is a more general.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. What does try look like exactly? What
I mean is, when I say try, they are going to invade, but their infrastructure isn't strong enough to do a lot of stuff. Most of their ships are shit. It's a matter of, and it's also the fact that, let's face facts, every single country right there in that area knows that if Taiwan goes, they're next.
The dominoes start falling.
Yeah, so Japan will go full alert the minute they do it. South Korea will go full alert. I'd be more terrified of the Vietnamese just because how they seem to kick everybody's ass. But there's a lot of countries that, if China even drops a bomb, whether it's nuke or not, on Taiwan, yes, America used to be this thing, but it's at this point
they will not nuke.
Oh, I know they won't nuke.
I promise you.
Yeah, I know they won't nuke because they need the land.
It defeats the whole purpose, because they want Taiwan, but it's as much a victory of the spirit.
Yeah,
as it is just picking up the because they've already got Shenzhen. So they can sort of duplicate a lot of the success of Hong Kong and Shenzhen. They've successfully done it.
Not to mention also the big thing too is because there's so many families that are both in Taiwan and have family members in China and vice versa. Any major military action, I think it actually not serve them well in the long run too. And I think the thing is,
Shenzhen's imploding on itself too.
How so?
That's one of the things ADB China talks about, because they used to live and work in Shenzhen. They talk about
how are they imploding?
Buildings are falling apart after 4 years.
Yeah, there's problems with basically they overworked their economy.
It's an honest question.
The information is not readily available. This is why the source that Serenity's talking about is a couple brave people who really probably have pretty bad social credit trying to talk about this stuff. So these guys,
they're in the States now.
Okay, but they were in China.
Up to a year and a half ago, I believe, is when they were last there. Because they used to motorcycle through, and they have actual video. This is not them just talking.
I watched that channel. I was thinking that's the channel you were talking about.
Yeah, no, but Shenzhen, they've talked about Shenzhen just falling in on itself. Not literally. I mean financially.
Well, there are some buildings that are literally collapsing.
Yeah, well, it's the South African guy whose name I cannot remember. He literally showed a video of an apartment building he lived in for 4 years. Most of the elevators didn't work. The park had gone to crap. There was no water in the fountains. The elevator.
Are we talking about Joe Biden? It sounds like a bunch of metaphors about Biden.
It could work. But there was
the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top.
No water in the fountain.
Yeah, really. But it's he talked about they talk about even in Shenzhen, the city center, air quotes, moves every 6 months because it's just them bulldozing everything, rebuilding, moving, overcharging for tiny ass apartments like $600,000 or 600,000 BR, whatever it is, for that kind of stuff, and then just 6 months later moving it again because the places are falling apart. And most of the stuff is people and just investors. Yep. It's not actual people. And that you actually have to tell the real estate agent, oh, you actually want to live here. Okay. And it's still crap. Flooring's terrible. They're selling apartments and not even showing them.
This is an interesting thing because I noticed that a basic apartment in a major tier 1 city like Beijing, a basic apartment costs $1 million. These get and some millennial, and there are 400 million millennials in China right now. Some millennial can't get into that apartment without doing what? Going deeply into debt, effectively going into debt that will last the rest of his working life.
It's like not owning anything.
Well, it's like they were talking about like the car tags to like the car tags, the license plates costing more than the car does, like 13,000 and up.
Oh, good grief!
And that's
it's
every
not like
year.
they're getting a taxi medallion in New York City. That's
But anyway,
sorry.
Where I was going with this was that Evergrande essentially built to anticipate a demand that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got in a cash squeeze and effectively taking out long-term debt to pay short-term interest, betting on the come that they would, that prices would go up fast enough to outrun that curve, and they lost big time. That's how Evergrande is collapsing. And I think that's the inside of the, it's basically a credit collapse. Of these real estate companies. That's what's happening there.
Well, it is the suck, but I'm going to push us on to the next
I'm sorry.
topic.
No.
That was more my fault than you, Skep. That was me.
we're doing fine. Were you trying to say something functional?
Yeah, just to quickly close off, there were two quick things I wanted to point out. That there's a defense pact, with Taiwan and the United States, and secondly, that any Western nation or advanced nation in the world would look at that and be like, no, that's not happening because of what's the big thing? Technology manufacturing. We, the West, the Western world, the modern world cannot lose that. Anyway.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it would not be
something.
It would not be good for us. Nobody wants to see this happen. My only statement was I was afraid that the problems in China made it more likely, not less likely.
Oh yeah,
nobody knows what's going to happen. I'm simply saying I think it pushes it in this direction.
It does,
and we had a discussion about it, which was great.
Doesn't the Shadow really know?
No.
And this just in, important breaking news. There's a massively drunk blind press in the chat. Hi, BP.
Well, feel free to send her the link.
Having fun.
Feel free to send.
Oh, she's at the cottage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Truman Show presidency. Biden ridiculed for using fake White House set. This to me doesn't seem like a big deal.
The functional corrected me on it, so I openly admit that I jumped
there was that knee-jerk reaction. People were like, this is the corporate media on the other side spinning a tale that just didn't line up with the facts. And I mean, it's not a fake set; it's a set in an auditorium. There are some artificial elements to it, like the video screen windows. But a lot of the narrative was like, he's trying to recreate the Oval Office. And it's like, well, if you're trying to recreate the Oval Office, first of all, it's the Oval Office, and you wouldn't create a square set. Now, it's just such a nothing to grasp on, because there's so much more that people on the other side, like Fox News, could and should be talking about in more detail. But, it's part of the big machine. I understand its place. It's just not entirely truthful.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't have an audience with the number of people in it in the Oval Office that you can in this building that's across the street. The only thing that I don't like about it's an optics thing, which is don't make it look like the Oval Office. Don't make a fake Oval Office, because that makes you think, well, is this like the fake Oval Office they made for Joe when they thought he was going to lose? That he was just going to, the one that they have in
sit in the basement,
Vermont or New Hampshire.
Yes, Joe, we're right on it.
Well, this is one of those things where
again? Sure thing, Joe.
It is one of those things where it looks a little weird, and this is the kind of stuff that, like, the moon landing is fake, like those kinds of rumors start, so.
Yeah, it's weird. I think that's the most egregious it gets. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're talking about whiskey in chat. Why are we talking about Maker's Mark? Maker's Mark is very tasty.
I think that's what BP's been imbibing.
Okay, good choice. Hey, BP, if you want to talk about whiskey sometime, I'm your guy. All right. So
whiskey stream, that'd be interesting. Can we include things like scotch?
As long as we don't have people talking about their favorite brand of whiskey stones. If Sanguine's on, he's going to have to behave himself. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Talk about
all right. Let's make that go away. Virginia County asked governor to waive absentee ballot witness signature requirements ahead of governor's election. I'm not even going to read this. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm waiting for Prosperity to start saying stuff in chat.
No. The Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. Fairfax County is the county in Virginia that is closest to Washington, D.C. It's in far northern Virginia, and it contains the town of Alexandria. It's where a lot of the bureaucrats live, and it is also referred to as Fairfaxistan because of the, it's just had an influx of minority. Yet whites are, less than 30% of the population. They used to be like 90% of the population. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that it's a bunch of very liberal, very woke people. And so just to set context for this.
Well, I don't understand. I understand why a bunch of liberal people might want to game the system, but what is the reason for waiving the witness signature requirement?
All right. If I would assume, because you have, what does the absentee ballot witness signature do?
I believe they require somebody to basically validate that, to basically vouch that, yeah, this person did submit this ballot. The same as any kind of witness signature. Obviously, they're not having them notarize the damn thing, but just having a person say, yes, this ballot was cast by this other person.
And to ensure that that person is eligible to vote.
I mean, it's a check on the absentee ballot process. Now, arguing ahead of an election that you want to weaken that, I'm just trying to think other than political benefit, like it might be convenient to make this election more free and fair by making it easier to submit ballots that maybe didn't go through the traditional process. I'm trying to be cagey here.
The only thing I could really think of offhand, and this is the claim that we hear all the time in my state, is that, it's potentially prejudice towards like the poor and those who are
poor black people.
Yeah, poor black people can't afford friends. They can't afford friends who will sign their name, saying that the other person signed their name.
I'm actually on Ballotpedia looking at Virginia right now. It says absentee voting in Virginia. Are there limits on who can request ballot? No. Mail request deadline gives a date. Request postmark for receipt deadline received. Mail return deadline, the election date, basically November 3rd. Return postmark or receipt deadline is postmarked. And then when I get down to notary witness requirements, it says no requirement.
Sounds like fortifying the election to me.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, so basically you could just have, for an absentee ballot, you can just, mail it in, and it does not require a notary or a witness, according to this. And this is, like I said, Ballotpedia is pretty up to speed.
Yeah, they can't print stuff like that if it's not true.
It's the internet.
Excuse me.
They check.
So this is part of a few articles. We won't spend a ton of time talking about COVID, but they have this system in New South Wales where they're talking about, yeah, we'll let you out of lockdown as soon as 70% of you are vaccinated.
Until then we'll eat you and shoot your dogs.
And then once 80% of people are vaccinated, we'll reopen nightclubs. And masks won't be mandatory in offices. So they've got this sort of ratcheting up that's supposed to happen as more and more people get let out. But in the big scheme of things, what Australia's doing is they're literally trying to push COVID cases to zero.
It's never going to happen.
At the same time, on the other side of the freaking world, we've got countries that have just said, it's endemic. It's not going anywhere. We're just going to
Norway.
reopen, and we're not going to do any of this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Singapore was the first one to do that. Like, I remember Geodes was the one who linked the article months ago.
They did, and then they reverted. Or they reversed
God,
it.
of course they
Yeah.
did.
But
Yeah.
Norway has gone whole hog. They have
Yep.
just said, fuck
Yeah.
it.
Fuck it,
Yeah.
it's endemic. Fuck it.
Now, keep
Yeah.
in mind, Norway
Pull your
also
computers.
recently donated like 500 billion to the EU randomly. So there you go.
There's a line in this article where it literally says, "Vaccination is the key to our freedom, and the sacrifice and effort of people right across New South Wales have ensured that we can open as quickly and safely as possible." It's like,
Well, they don't have that whole Enlightenment values thing where freedom is something that the government doesn't grant you. It's a thing that you have. So the key to your freedom
That
is your
phrase is-
humanity. That's the key to your freedom.
that person saying that phrase is terrifying, though.
Yeah.
I will say, and I'm not trying to equate anything from my state to what's happening in Australia, but like at the very beginning of this lockdown, the way our governor was talking, it sounds very eerily similar to what they're describing here. And I can tell you right now, it didn't happen. So
Okay, so
We must
so
purge the country of at least 70% of the Yuden.
well,
It has
okay,
to be
so
safe.
hold on now. If if their approach is that we really don't want, they want there to be zero COVID. If we see any COVID traveling around, we're going to shut it all down. Unless the entire world does that all at the same time, this doesn't work, because eventually somebody from Norway with COVID is going to meet somebody from another country who doesn't have it, and it's going to find its way back into Australia. You're just going to keep locking yourself up every time there's a COVID season, kind of like the cold season. You're going to be open 9 months out of the year in Australia. This is ridiculous.
Well,
it's
it's kind
called. Oh, go ahead, Sorry.
Well, I was about to say, it's like, look at New Zealand. New Zealand locked itself down hardcore. Well, pseudo hardcore. They still allowed 7 crews from film companies to be there, but that's neither here nor there. And they were like, "Oh, see, we have 0." And then the minute they opened back up, there were cases. And it's not a large country with a large population, but like New Zealand's antics prove this. You can lock down, just don't expect anything to happen other than maybe business stuff to come through, but don't expect to travel ever again.
Yeah.
Don't expect to do anything. Like, if you want to live landlocked in your house and in your country for the rest of your life, all right.
Oh, I did want to ask, if somebody from Norway brings COVID to Australia, is that the Norwegian connection?
Oh my God. Can I drive to your home state and just slap you?
I mean, you can get in line. I think Prospero said she could do it first. So,
Prospero gets so basically what you're saying is I have to drive to your state, kidnap you, bring you to Prospero, and let her slap you, and then I get to slap you.
form a line? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeehaw, let's go to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, moving on.
You could hear it.
No, that's
Oh,
penis news,
what?
and that's for a
What?
whole nother episode. God damn it.
Got something you
Okay.
gotta tell us there, Harry?
No, this is
Jumped the
this is
gun.
penis news, and
Jumping
this
the
is for
gun.
another show. Jumping the gun. Australia's home quarantine app uses facial recognition technology to make sure you haven't left your house. I assume everybody's heard about this Orwellian
yeah.
crap, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to talk about this other than just they've really outdone themselves in Australia.
Ooh, they proved that they are the children of their jailers, that's for sure.
I do get the eerie impression that a lot of countries want to follow this model, and all I can say is just don't. Just don't.
Yeah.
Please. Just don't. It doesn't work.
Yeah. I wouldn't even use like facial recognition unlocking on my phone. It's just crazy. Alrighty then. Let's just go on to the next thing. So, Sweden and Denmark pause use of Moderna vaccine for young people. The decision came after reports of possible rare side effects. Sticking carefully to the story here so as not to get ourselves in too much trouble. After reports of possible rare side effects, Denmark and Sweden halted the use of Moderna's mRNA COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday. Recent data points to an increase in the inflammation of heart muscles, myocarditis, and inflammation of the pericardium, pericarditis. The connection is especially clear when it comes to Moderna's vaccine, Spikevax. Well, that's scary. I didn't even know it was called that. Especially after the second dose, Sweden's health agency said in a statement. The people who are most affected by this, by like leaps and bounds, are younger men. Not that this is... I mean, if you have the choice, this is not a particularly good vaccine for that group. Maybe it's just that they decide they get the vaccine, they say, I feel fine. They run around like crazy people when they should be taking it easy.
I have Moderna. So.
Well,
actually, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think a lot of this, I assume everybody's seen the John Campbell video on perfusion. And I think this is related to that. I believe that young men, tend to have muscular hypertrophy, and that means increased blood supply to the muscles. There's simply a better chance of when you give an IM injection, that needle goes in, and if it's near enough or on a little capillary type of blood vessel or a very small vein, that's usually what you hit. You can effectively inject some of the vaccine directly into the bloodstream, which means you get a lot of it making its way to the heart very quickly and doing its polymerase inhibition stuff and ending up damaging the walls of the myocardium or the pericardium.
Yeah.
Which is what that is, and I think John Campbell made very very good point about that, and it probably makes sense. What really bothers me is that why isn't everybody paying attention to that and saying we're going to make sure that we're not pulling blood, with every injection we get? That's an easy thing to do. That's a simple injection technique. You just pull back on the... It's so easy. Anyone can do it. Yeah.
Well, we're going to provide a a link to this MedRx preprint. This has not been peer reviewed, but this is the research that motivated the decision in Norway and Sweden. So you guys can take a look at that. It's... we're not going to go over that right now. We don't take the entire show.
I'm sorry, I got too detailed.
No, you're fine. Let's see, home quarantine, Sweden, and then there's another thing that came up because people have been trying to make the point that the Delta variant is this game changer as far as kids are concerned. Because anything we thought we knew before is all different now because Delta is like this magic thing that follows a whole new set of rules that means they have to go back on every promise they ever made, they meaning the governments. In terms of children, though, we really don't see a huge difference in terms of the way the Delta variant acts if this preprint paper, link also provided, gives us any indication of what's going on. We really don't see a huge, not like a fundamental game-changing type thing happening between Delta and the previous variants as far as kids are concerned. So we don't have to necessarily just throw every single thing out. In Italy, they're not really on board with the COVID-19 passport and the new extension of all the bullshit rules they've been applying to these people.
Yeah.
I mean, Italy is, of course, not the only place this is happening. A lot of people are getting fed up. They would just as soon have their countries run the way Sweden's running, and Norway. Has anybody... I mean, Norway's going to see an increase in cases, but I don't think it's going to cripple their economy or anything.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to agree with the Norwegian government, Susan? I'm just not really sure what we're allowed to say anymore.
Only if you're talking like this, then.
Well, be like the Swedish chef here. Okay.
Yeah.
Any comments on this particular topic and things like it before we move on?
Move on.
Moving on. All right.
I think it's just good that there are people who are against this type of. Sorry, I forgot my mic. Against that tyranny, we see this happening in France, in parts of Australia, in Canada, in the United States, at varying degrees. I think it's good that people are pushing back to say, hey, we didn't even have a discourse on this. You're just forcing all of this on us. So no.
Exactly. I mean, I think
$1 trillion coin.
Well, yeah, it scares me when I see people saying that that political speech, which is what this is, you're not saying that COVID and other things aren't bad. You're just saying, politically, I think we should do something else. Saying, I don't think your solution is fit for purpose, which is why I was questioning the whole idea of there being zero COVID in Australia. I don't see how they can sustain that when the rest of the world isn't on board with this plan. Because eventually, even though you're a freaking island, it's going to find its way in.
Sure.
You cannot control every single point of entry into your country.
Yeah, especially with our current economic climate. Like, the world is interconnected. Get over it.
Yeah, we have these things called aeroplanes.
And boats and the interwebs.
Ships.
I mean, unless they think they're going to be quarantining everybody coming into Australia for 14 days forever.
No.
That's not going to do wonders for their economy. So this unflushable notion of the $1 trillion platinum coin is still floating around. I mean, I think this is just incredibly dumb. I say why it matters. Congressional solutions to the debt ceiling problem could take weeks to implement, especially if the reconciliation process is used and time is running out. In case of emergency, a $1 trillion coin could be deployed to bridge any gap between the money running out and the debt ceiling being raised. No.
Yeah, but the downside is that your money won't mean money anymore. It won't. Your money won't be money, really. It's just an idea.
Even if,
instead of money printer go burr, this is money minter go stamp.
Well, this is beautiful to me right here. Producing a $1 trillion eagle would require only the denomination to be changed. This could easily be executed on the existing plaster mold of the platinum eagle. Okay,
That's
cool.
not the point.
It's super easy. Even if Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, has no intention of minting such a coin, there is no reason for her not to quietly instruct the mint director to take these steps a day or two in advance.
Okay, the problem will be when the Fed makes its daily report, about the reserve requirement. There's going to be $1 trillion extra in cash, making the government look much more solvent than what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is a direct dilution of the currency.
I think they should have to follow the same rules the SEC puts down for the rest of us.
Yeah, what a concept.
Yeah, at that point, a coin could be struck in minutes at the West Point Mint, even if they needed to be physically deposited at the New York Fed. That's only a short helicopter ride away. Imagine, wouldn't that be like the greatest film of all time? Like we've got one last job before we retire.
Yeah,
we're gonna steal the $1 trillion coin as it's being transferred between
that's
the mint and the treasury.
The $1 trillion coin isn't really a $1 trillion coin. It's not a coin in any sense of the term. A coin is something that, first of all, is fungible with all the other coins. I mean, yes, you can tell some of them apart by date and rare this and that, but most of them are effectively identical. If you dump a dime into a bag of dimes, finding that particular dime again is effectively impossible. This coin is not like that. This coin is not a coin you can put in your pocket and know that you can walk into a Federal Reserve Bank and say, I would like 1 trillion $1 bills. I'll stand here while you count them. Here's my coin. It's not a bearer coin. It does not serve any of the purposes of that. It is an economic fiction. And it is effectively it's kind of a counterfeit, really. Money is supposed to reflect whatever secures it. It used to be secured by gold, and you can have it secured by precious metals or whatever, or you can say, I'm going to secure this by the future productivity of our nation. You can do that to an extent, but if you start printing money, people are going to say, I don't think you're going to be that productive. And there's some calculations you can do to say that you have printed too much money. You have therefore inflated your currency by this much. And in the currency markets around the world, the value of your currency will begin to drop against those other currencies. This is going to happen with the United States dollar, but it's not going to happen right away. But when it happens, it's going to be large. It's going to be immediate and very large. It's very unpredictable as to when that will happen, but it will happen.
Yeah. Well, I believe hold on, there's a word which I think we need to bring back into use. You could refer to this coin as a conceit.
Yes.
That's essentially what this is, because it's like a fiction.
It's a fiscal conceit.
It's a fiscal conceit. I was like, go ahead, Functional.
Has anything like this been done before? I mean, I know that the reverse has happened to what Skep was talking about, and how when the need arose because a currency of a country became so worthless, they had to, instead of printing 100x value notes, they had to start printing 50,000 value because the currency, what was backing it was so devalued. But has anything like this ever been attempted
in the U.S.?
No, in the world, in the history of.
Well, I don't think the world matters.
It really didn't come up until Bo Gritz ran for president in 1992. As part of his stump speeches, he would hold up a 5-inch example coin in the specific, and he would wave it around. That's the first mention of it that I can find. But it wasn't until 2011 that the use of the concept as an unorthodox method of resolving the debt ceiling crisis came to the attention of the financial press, and really kind of hit the mainstream press. I guess that there's a guy at Yale Law School named Jack Balkin who is a big champion of this. And of course, once 2011, there was a big debt ceiling crisis, and once it was resolved, nobody paid attention to the concept anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then it did it got more mainstream attention a year or two later, as the debt ceiling limit was being approached again, and it was economist Paul Krugman, the evil Paul Krugman, who endorsed the idea and asserted that opposition to the idea was coming from people unwilling to admit the truth that money is a social contrivance. Those are his words. Money is a social contrivance. His endorsements attracted considerable media attention. Read from an article now. And Congressman Jerry Nadler endorsed the idea, which is probably a good reason to not endorse the idea. And it got even, more and more press. So at any rate, there's a huge inflation risk, obviously. It would be analogous to the securities purchases that are a part of quantitative easing, for example. Those things all add to the monetary base. And it's the sum of the currency in circulation and all the bank reserves. In the case of the coin, commercial bank reserves would increase as the Treasury spends the proceeds from the coin's purchase by the Federal Reserve. Think about that for a minute. You print this coin, and then you spend the money that it represents. Mm-hmm. If banks loan out those reserves, the money supply increases. And if the money supply increases too rapidly, the economy will immediately overheat, and that will be hugely inflationary. And when that happens very quickly, what the market begins to over-anticipate future inflation, and you get this kind of overreaction this way, overreaction that way, as it inflate, correct. Mm-hmm. And the markets, the orderliness of the stock market, for example, becomes very disorderly.
That's a solid point. It's a solid point, Skep. The general idea that if you show a callous disregard for inflation, the markets will become essentially more sensitive to every single thing you do, looking for future callousness, and it affects the future value of things. Because a lot of that is a social construct. It is about people's estimation of your goodwill and character to behave in a particular way.
Yes, you hit it right on the head. I love the snootiness of Krugman's. Money is a social contrivance.
Yeah,
that guy has a punchable face. He really does.
he
All right.
does. But it says right
You
here,
know.
you obviously didn't read all of this article, Skep. It says, voila, we'd have bought ourselves the equivalent of $1 trillion increase in the debt limit without any impact on inflation. It says it right there.
Well, that's just an abject lie.
Now, supposedly, Yellen is still saying that she thinks it's just a gimmick and we're not going to do this. So,
Yeah.
a rare statement of common sense from Janet Yellen, but I don't trust her not to go back on it.
She's going to do what she's told.
She's going to do what she's told. Yeah.
And I'm all for equal rights. She's also got a very punchable face.
Yeah, you're not
So
wrong.
why do you think the IRS would be interested in all transactions of more than $600?
Because they want to help us.
Well, maybe for the benefit of the non-U.S. people here and the people who don't employ people, 600 is a very particular number. That is the number at which you have to file a 1099 form for a person that you pay as a contractor. Right. So in theory, you are supposed to pay, if you hire an individual to do something, you're supposed to issue a form to the IRS saying, I paid my nanny $2,000 during the course of the year. Anything over $600 is supposed to have one of these forms associated with it. So to my mind, the reason you would do this is because you want to basically crush the underground economy. You want to make it as small as possible. So this is a means toward doing that. It's like, well, not everybody's filing their 1099 forms for all the people that they pay. And those people then can take that money and the IRS won't know that they were paid that money. So we want to look at your bank accounts. Did you give somebody $600? Did you receive $600 or more?
Well, this is also...
it's very Orwellian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this also is another little child project that came out of the Patriot Act, if I recall. Because wasn't that where it started with $10,000 or $10,000?
Well, okay. The $10,000
No, that was the
thing,
Bank Information Act.
The $10,000 thing is to solve a different problem.
Yeah.
They were trying to deal with money laundering and stuff, but the Patriot Act and other things tied into it because they didn't want terrorists to be able to hide their financial transactions. But they've been looking at the 10,000 or more for a long time. If you're going to move large amounts of money around, the IRS has always wanted to know about it. Changing that number from 10,000 to 6,000 is a big deal.
Or
To 600.
Sorry, 600.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that's because a lot more transactions happen below 600. So when you, as an employee, you get paid more than 600, but you get a W-2 for that, right? But when you're a contractor or you're not somebody's employee, they just don't want the underground economy to be big. But it's a little disturbing, the level of overreach we're looking at here.
I do have another question, though. In states, or not in states necessarily, but in certain locations where they now are passing laws saying, oh, if so much amount of money is stolen, then that's legally fine. In terms of, I think that was, what was that, in Portland or not Portland?
Oh, okay, I got you covered on this. There's a bunch of these sort of restorative justice nitwits who want to make it the case that where they're saying too many people in these particular demographic groups are spending large chunks of their life in jail, leading to fatherlessness and all the other problems that it causes, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to, instead of solving the problems of the source of the crime, they're trying to just make crime not be crime. Let's keep these people out of jail by essentially turning a misdemeanor into, a felony into a misdemeanor and a misdemeanor into an infraction. And then the attorney general or the prosecutor could just choose to decide not to enforce the law if they feel like it. And this was the big thing that was going on with Ted Cruz and that nominee. I forget which one it was. That was another story that came up. But Ted Cruz was basically taking her own words and using them against her. And of course, that's terribly racist to do that.
It was for the Southern District of New York.
Okay.
Yeah, this person had no business being a nominee, let alone to be approved.
Oh, okay. So I guess that leads to my question, though, of like, if the amount stolen is $600, and then
no. I see what you mean. The number that a lot of them use is 900. Like in California, I can't remember if it was 900 or 950. So if somebody breaks a window in your car and steals a few things out of the back of it, if replacing that window and the CDs or whatever that were stolen costs less than $900, the police don't care.
Actually, the way that it works, Harry, I believe, I'm pretty sure it works this way, is it's the retail value and then what it would be taxed if that's not over $1,000. That's why you get these weird $930 kind of things.
Yeah, there's that. But it is really all part of this restorative justice.
Right.
And there are different things that are happening in different places. In some places, there's law that supports this. In other places, it's the prosecutors who are just choosing not to do their job. Because by restorative, they simply mean we're going to see equal representation in the jails if I have to just let all the criminals loose.
Yeah.
That is the goal, because any system that doesn't have equal percentages of people based on the population in
is
jail
by definition
racist, and racism is the ultimate crime. So if we have to let murderers out of jail early to achieve the numbers we're looking for, so be it.
Yeah,
and that's not an exaggeration.
Cause. No, that's literally what they believe and the way that they put it. They're unapologetic about this, defiant even.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to sidetrack it, but I was just thinking, like, the way these whole bills and are balancing out for what is acceptable in terms of what can be stolen price wise and what the IRS wants to look at, price wise for purchases. It's just, this is all wonky.
Well, they would really love to just get rid of cash. There's been another change that a lot of people who get paid under the table, we get paid in cash. And that's pretty common. You can. I often pay people in cash for things, but that's just so they don't have to pay the credit card fees. There are people who get paid in cash all the time because that's the way their customers like it. But at a certain point, if they're going through your bank records, there's only so many trips to the ATM where they start going, how come you're extracting so much money here? Are you helping a young lady through school, perhaps, or do you have what exactly are you doing with this thousands of dollars a month that you're taking out in cash?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a $600 thing. They will come after all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. It's also going to make inheritance very, very difficult, because I know people who have been trying to figure out ways to get money to their children. You have to
start years in advance.
Yeah. We can't give you that advice. I can say there is. I think you can gift up to $13,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
And so you start giving them stuff in advance. You can do other things with trusts, and there's ways that you can handle property so that when somebody passes away, things are handled in a more efficient sort of way. But that's not a topic we can really get into right now.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody who knows what the hell they're doing is my advice to anybody.
Yeah. This just seems like the federal apparatus wants to increase the size of their fishing nets, like we saw in the first story of the safety deposit boxes being raided. They want to fish for crimes without any evidence, and I mean, the IRS has been getting away with that for a while now, so it wasn't really shocking.
Well, speaking of getting away with it, a number of you sent articles to me about this. These offshore accounts that these people use that were linked in the Pandora Papers. Would one of you who suggested this like to talk about this for a bit?
Functional, or I don't know.
Well, I know how it related to my country specifically, because I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, a specific
So-
example is instructive. Just talk about how it relates to your country.
Basically, what happened here was, a lot of people. It's nothing new that people store, quote unquote, store money in offshore accounts to avoid taxation or as a safety. What do you call it? Retirement nest. These kinds of things. So it's not really anything new, but it is rather telling when these papers came out and showed who all is putting money in these offshore accounts. And there were a lot of names, and predominantly it was people with a lot of money who have a lot of lucrative government contracts, provincially and federally, as well as politicians at some of the highest levels of government. So that sends up a whole bunch of red flags, because it's like, well, why do you need to hide all this money if you're supposed to be a part of this system in this country? And if you're paying your taxes, or if you're in a government position and you're not getting kickbacks, why do you need secrecy above and not transparency in your personal finances? I don't know what happened down south. So,
well, remember what I say all the time. Everything about these people is projection. So
Yes.
the reason they're so interested in looking at your accounts is they know what they would do if they were in your position.
what they're already doing. Yeah.
What they're already doing.
Yeah.
They're sure you're getting away with something, and that just can't be allowed. So we have this link from Business Insider that's got some information, and this from CBC. Huge Pandora Papers leak exposes secret offshore accounts of politicians, celebrities, and billionaires. Canadians named in confidential files include former auto racing and figure skating champions. Because that seems like it's a project for the people, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Pandora Papers show 35 current or former world leaders and more than 300 other public officials around the globe who have held assets in or through tax havens. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair, the current Prime Ministers of the Czech Republic and Kenya, and the King of Jordan have all benefited from the anonymity or tax advantages of their offshore holdings, the records reveal. The 11.9 million files, consisting of everything from emails to bank statements, incorporation documents, and shareholder registries, are from 14 firms that provide offshore services and were leaked by a confidential source to the Washington-based International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Now, as far as I know, there's nothing illegal going on here. It's just a bad look. It's bad optics. It's a PR problem for these people, because I don't think this is
Legally,
wrongdoing, right? This is all within the law.
Unless someone in what we have up here, our version of the IRS is the CRA. They look at what was leaked here compared to, say, tax returns and earning statements, and go, well, wait. You claim that you have, $6 million in assets, but you have 100 million in this offshore account. This is not adding up. Then there could be some actual legal problem. But I mean, it is very much an optics problem, because it's like, why are you keeping money out of the system you claim to be such a proponent of? And if you're giving us these rules where, for example, the previous story where you have to look at our accounts even for transactions of $600 and above, where your transactions are going off grid completely.
Yeah. But you could, if you had illegal money, put it in one of these accounts too. It doesn't mean that the account is illegal. It just means that you don't necessarily know if the money put into it was legal to begin with.
Exactly.
It doesn't say anything about the source of the money being put into this thing.
No.
So there's this article here in the link, which is before his death, Quebecer behind one of the largest online black markets used offshore accounts to dodge law. Yeah. It's not legal to use, it's not the account that's the problem, it's what he did with the money. I know, probably a nuance not worth getting into too much.
Well, I think we're all on board with the same thing. Yeah, if you're breaking the law, well then, you're breaking the law. If you're not, well, then it's not as egregious.
Well, on with international money stuff. World leaders reached landmark deal on a global corporate tax rate. I guess
boy.
what is his name? The West Virginia guy.
Joe Manchin?
Joe Manchin.
Yeah, the Joe Manchin of this was basically Ireland, who said, "No,
Yeah,
we
then-
really enjoy having people funnel money through us, and we
Pushed out.
get a cut."
Mm-hmm.
They pushed out.
Yeah, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development on Friday announced a major breakthrough on corporate tax rates after years of disagreement. The group of developed nations agreed to a global minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. That's a big deal. You were going to say something, Skep?
Yeah, just that who thinks that every country is close enough in terms of the how a certain percentage, a common percentage of forfeiting corporates' profits, who thinks that's a good idea, that everybody's needs and requirements and the potential benefits would be exactly across the same? Why are they
Shareholders?
No. Skep's asking a different question.
Yeah, what I'm saying
Sorry.
is that countries are too different from one another. To have one rate for all the different countries is absurd.
Yeah.
All you're going to do is you're going to motivate, and they'll be very effective at it, zero profit corporations, where they find a way to hide their profit or distribute their profit without going through that tax grid.
Mhm.
And it always ends up being dishonest. It always ends up being inefficient. People who should get the money, or the reinvestment in the business that should happen, never happens as efficiently if you have some cockamamie percentage that the government demands this much of your profit. You know, if they were smart, they would not tax corporate profits at all.
Yeah.
Corporate profits are the lifeblood of capitalism, and corporate profits are what make the world go round. That cell phone in your hand, the car you drive, the rocket ships you see go to the moon, the ships that bring you your stuff, the trucks, everything you see, the shoes in your feet, all that stuff comes from capitalism. All that stuff comes because of corporate profits. That's the only reason that we have all those things. And to say no, a bunch of inefficient government bureaucrats are going to take 15% of it because they want to, and they have the government guns, so they're basically going to hold up the companies that produce all the good things in our lives, take all the risk, fail 70% of the time. People don't, start a company, you're probably going to fail.
No, Skep, you're willfully conflating profits and expenses. See, salaries and things for all the workers, those are expenses. These taxes only affect profits. So it's not going to cause any real harm to the people who work for these companies if we jack the taxes up.
I'm going to have an aneurysm.
Sorry, I've just tried to use my Yellen Lisp emulator.
Jesus.
This is just the EU, right?
No. This is a whole bunch of developed countries around the world. 136 of them have decided that there's going to be they're going to have a minimum rate of 15%, which doesn't change the U.S. rate, which is going to be higher.
Of course it is. But no, I was just thinking that if it was just the EU, England's probably going, well, we're about to make a lot of money.
Well, Ireland is the one who gets really screwed by this because they've been really enjoying having a lot of money pass through their country in exchange for them really having to do nothing but just decide not to be bank robbers.
I apologize for this, and this goes off too much on a tangent. I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm about to ask a question.
Go ahead.
What, for those of you who've thought this through, because you probably have, because God knows, I don't, because I would probably give myself an aneurysm, much like Skep said he would give himself. What do these people who help pass these laws in these countries, do they think they're going to get rich off of it? Do they think it's a bargaining chip? Like, what do you think is their mentality for doing this shit?
I can tell you, okay, I'll give you my take on it.
Okay.
These people look at corporate profits as something that they are entitled to. We're entitled to a piece of this. You owe us. Because without this beautiful country that we have built, you would not be able to have your business. So in return, you need to pay your fair share. What do you mean you don't owe us your fair share because your profits actually are realized in Ireland? How is that possible? That's the thing that's basically going on. They're trying to make sure that you can't not give them their fair share. And I'm using their viewpoint here.
Okay.
Because they honestly do. If you listen to Obama, who I guess our secret president.
You didn't make that.
Yes, exactly. Obama was like, you didn't make that. It was a village that did this. All of this stuff is only here because you benefited from school lunches and public education and roads that allowed things to go to the business. None of it was really you. It's just sort of luck that you were there. This is where the viewpoint is
from the roads come from.
The viewpoint is completely different between those people and more libertarian types.
Well, they
don't even think the individual matters.
Yeah. Well, they think they as an individual matter, but they don't think other individuals matter. But that's neither here nor there. But it's like, I was just curious because it's just like, to me, like you all have explained, it's like this is going to move these companies out of these countries and and it's going to lose them money in the long run and and all this kind of stuff. It's like I know most politicians don't have an MBA or have any business background, but you think someone would look at them and go, okay, hold on.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very complicated because if you go to form a business, right, there's all sorts of different things that can happen. There's different ways businesses form partnerships with each other. There are different ways of organizing businesses. You can have limited liability corporations, you can have limited partnerships, you can have different types of corporations, S corporations, C corporations, within C corporations, sole proprietorships. Within C corporations, there's different ways that you can structure the capital. I have friends who set these things up for companies. That's how I know about a lot of how this stuff is done. Now, what you might see as a side effect of this is more companies organizing in different ways than they did before, because a lot of the tax benefits of being a C corporation, which is the kind of corporation they're talking about here.
Okay, so it only affects a C corporation. It doesn't affect.
I believe that we're really only talking about C corporations here.
Okay.
Because the other things distribute their profits in different sorts of manners. So depending on how you want to take the money, and like Skep was saying, reinvest it into the business, how you realize gains, how you reinvest money into the business, there are advantages and disadvantages to every kind of corporation or every type of legal entity that you can create to form a business. And what they're doing is they're trying to rein you in so that you can't escape the taxes that some C corps have. Because I mean, cynically, if you're going to be cynical about it, it is kind of bullshit that companies like Apple funnel a whole bunch of money through Ireland to avoid taxes in the United States. I mean, I can see where their interest is, but at the same time, I think having this minimum is not a good thing because, like Skep said, the world is a big place, and there may be countries that legitimately want to get investment in their country that aren't just getting money from places like Intel and Apple, by basically them washing their profits by running it through these offshore entities.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a very complicated topic, and I don't claim to understand all of it.
Taking 15% from a company that has managed to make a profit in a place like Sweden is very different from taking 15% of a company that's making a profit in Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
or even Barbados. Barbados. Barbados has been utterly screwed by hurricanes multiple times. And I only know about this because I was trying to get more bay rum because I'm fancy. So I was trying to figure out why I couldn't get bay rum from Barbados, so I started reading up. I mean, they got pummeled by hurricanes over the course of the 2010s. And you can buy citizenship in Barbados. You can set up businesses there. You would want Barbados to be able, after they've been just utterly screwed by weather multiple times. And I mean, it just wiped out a ton of their agriculture. It like blew it all off the freaking island.
That's right.
So you want to make it so Barbados can't get foreign investment because you don't like the fact that Apple dodges a bunch of taxes?
Which,
if you get rid of corporate taxes completely and you just tax the individual income of the people at the top and the bottom of the companies, then what would happen is this thing they really don't want anybody to see is they wouldn't want you to actually see what the real tax rate is. They've already hidden a bunch of the stuff in the Social Security tax, so most people don't realize that that's compensation they're not getting.
yeah.
Your real rate is actually higher, but there's a bunch of hidden payroll taxes that the average person doesn't know about.
Oh,
Yeah.
And they don't see the impact of the corporate taxes. If they
Exactly
just
right.
charged everybody income taxes and they didn't have all this funny business going on, then you'd actually realize how much of their money you're wasting. And a VAT, I mean, a value-added tax, that's just the ultimate circle jerk of taxation.
Yes.
Which I have one other question. And it's
I resolved at the beginning of the stream not to talk too much, and I have failed in that pledge.
I'm just gonna keep
You
asking
haven't.
questions. But no, so like Apple's a C corporation, like Tesla's like a C corporation. That level are the ones they're trying to go after, right? Or is it like, are there some ones that, like, I know there's ones we don't know because there's some that aren't public about how big they are, but that's
No,
That's the money.
No, it's effectively after every corporation. Everybody who files articles of incorporation, basically.
Mhm.
If your company is not set up as a partnership, a limited liability partnership, or a general or a sole proprietorship, and it has articles of incorporation, regardless if it's of the type of corporation it is. If it is a corporation, they want to tax you at this level. Now, the amounts of money that they're talking about, of course, they're more interested in Apple than they are in Kettle's motel. But those the different styles of corporations are set up for various reasons, and it really doesn't revolve too much around profit. It has more to do with ownership of the company.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was
and
curious
distribution of dividends to the shareholders.
about. Okay, because that's what I was like. I was like, what makes them different? Because I know what an LLC is, but it's like that. I know that's not like that level they're going after.
Yeah. Corporations were invented. I know Harry doesn't want me to get off in this. No, I'll just say it really quick.
We're actually okay time-wise.
Yeah, I was like, sorry. I'm curious.
Corporations exist to, as much as anything, provide a structure of ownership that prevents liability from falling on the shoulders of a person or just a couple of people in the company, and effectively spreads the potential liability over the entire ownership of the company, and the company is owned by the shareholders, people who own the common stock. They own the company. So if you, but you can't sue the shareholders. That's called the corporate veil in the law. They refer to that as the corporate veil that protects the shareholders from being sued. The way that a sole proprietor, a barber who owns his own barber shop, or a partnership, typically lawyers' offices are set up as partnerships. Those people, the people who own those businesses, are not protected from that from potential liability suits.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there you go.
Well, there's more. There's a deeper history to it, which maybe I don't know if Prospero knows about this. I always assume she knows everything about history, but if you go back historically, with the rise of nation states and a lot of trade kicking up, basically all those regions that used to belong to Charlemagne's kids had nice rivers on them with ports. So you ended up with places like Venice, and people started forming these corporations because if a person is born, forms a blacksmithing shop, right, hires a few people to work in their blacksmithing shop, when that person dies, everything kind of goes wonky. But if you get past a certain size, or you want something to exist past your own lifetime, the only way to make that work was to form some sort of cooperative entity, which grew into corporations. The liability stuff came later.
Gotcha.
That's exactly right. The design was to have they called it a going concern. That they wanted the company to outlast the lifetime of the person who founded it. You know, Harry's exactly right. I'm old enough to actually remember the first one.
Yeah, hanging out on that bridge, going over that canal, where all the money lenders and the insurance people were figuring out.
They'll call it the bridge of sides for torture. Anyway,
let's see. So, let's see. There was a comment here talking about, where did it go? Here it is. Spudgun. Talking to Gamerline. Google has an office in England where they do the selling. The call gets passed to Ireland for the sale. Do the tax benefits. Yeah, they're very clever people. That office in England, there's a rum bar near there that's supposed to be one of the best ones in the world. Just saying. So if you ever are lucky enough to work out of that one, they've got a rum bar near there. It's got like a few hundred rums up on the wall. Nice. I actually know some people who've worked out of that office temporarily. It's quite the little gig to be there for a couple of years working out of that office if you live in the U.S.
Take it down, pass it around. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the kind of rum you want to be doing that with. People slap it and slap you.
Okay, so so there's this article from CNN Business. Did we actually cover this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is basically more information. We'll give you the links. We always give everybody the links all the time. All right.
Yeah, and I posted the list of the 136 countries in chat. So if anyone wants to know specifically what countries, but basically it's, most of them.
There'll be a test next Saturday.
There you go.
So we're moving out of the tax and spend block into the technology block now. We survived. Good job, everybody.
Woohoo!
So there's this article, and this might be kind of sour grapes and partially just full of crap here. A decade after Jobs' death, has Apple traded magic for profit?
What's magic about it under Jobs?
Well, I mean, we don't need to rehash the entire Jobs legacy, but it's really easy to sort of armchair quarterback stuff that Apple does.
Mm-hmm.
They still do a pretty good job of a lot of things, and I don't know if everybody fully appreciates what the change to ARM architecture is going to do for them. Because the whole world has been moving toward these more and more powerful computers. And Apple is like, well, we'll give you this thing that works a lot like your iPhone and all the other things that you've got, and also produces almost no heat and has 20 hours of battery time, and is like several times faster than the thing that came before it. They are actually still revolutionizing stuff. Maybe not with the same kind of vision that Steve Jobs had. You can't have a huge sea change every 5 years. At least I don't think the current people at Apple can do that, but they're still doing really revolutionary stuff because they're the only ones that kind of have the balls to sort of say, look, Intel, you're not going to hold us captive. If you push us enough, we're just going to make our own. Yeah. We're going to make our own stuff. Yeah, you've got a new Mac, and it's awesome, right?
Yeah, the M1 still, it doesn't get hot at all, even when I'm doing. I played Minecraft on it the other day. Nothing happened. It's fine.
It's not sexy, but it is revolutionary.
No, and it weighs nothing. I don't have to hear like my MacBook Pro, where eventually would go. And I'm like, oh god, it's going to explode.
Don't say that too loudly. My MacBook Pro is really doing its thing.
doing its
yeah, my internal fans are
jet
spinning
engines?
at about 5,500 RPMs, and it's on top of an active cooler.
Yeah.
Have they got those apples to where they can access the internet now?
They do. I don't know. I mean, this article kind of annoys me. I think it's really easy to write an article like this. Well, and I think it's largely bullshit, but they do sort of have a point. But what's wrong with chasing profits? They had a lot of problems. They brought Steve in because they were kind of going nowhere. They were stuck. Because remember, Apple started, it was Wozniak and Jobs, and it built up, and then Jobs decided he wanted to go do his own thing. And so he started Next Corporation. And Next did all kinds of amazing stuff, kind of taking Unix and bringing it onto the desktop and building things that were foreshadowing.
Next was actually awesome.
It was awesome. They were foreshadowing a lot of the stuff that's in the design museums now, like the G4 Cube. And so he brought all that stuff in. So you're not going to necessarily get a new Steve Jobs every time. There aren't a lot of people that are born like that. But it's not like Apple's not still innovating and making money. I think it was pretty ballsy to try to push stuff onto ARM.
Oh, yeah.
And people said, well, you can't do that because compatibility. Well, Rosetta 2, which does the translation from ARM to Intel, or excuse me, Intel to ARM, works beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
And
no,
it's
it
still
works really
faster
well.
under emulation to run on the ARM than it is to run on the old Intel stuff. It's
I
pretty
thought-
awesome.
I thought it was faster to run on your legs, but oh.
No,
But chain.
like the flag
Yeah.
from the Isle of Man.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there anybody. This is one of these things where I start talking and I suck all the air out of the room because I go, okay, here's the thing and here's the conclusion. Does anybody have an opinion? You're like, no.
My opinion is my M1 Air Mac is good.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Here's the thing about Jobs. He was, a brilliant innovator, but he also appreciated the beauty in an elegant technological solution, and he had real talent for recognize these beautiful solutions. I'm not conveying this very well, but he when something worked, it worked beautifully, and it tended to simplify the problem rather than being an extraordinarily complicated solution. He hated extremely complicated solutions. He wanted simple solutions to complicated problems, and he was really remarkable in his ability to recognize when the solution was the right direction, in the direction of that kind of elegance. I don't think they have the same sort of they don't have that kind of a personality who has emerged at Apple, where all of that is in one person. But they have some truly, truly talented people working there. Did I just suck all the air out of the room? Or?
No. I was just looking at the comment from Jack Gunsky. He's talking about Harry is a huge fan of Unix, EUNUCHS. Don't make me play the recording of the last castrati, because it could happen. The whole castrati thing is pretty interesting. Well, I'm going to go ahead and push this.
Did you see that I posted that?
I did, and I went and looked at a few other things. I thought about putting it in as penis news at the end, but I decided better of it.
Big old dick.
Okay, so another Axios thing. Google, YouTube to prohibit ads and monetization on climate denial content.
I mean, most of those people were already on Patreon anyway. I mean, I don't agree with it, but it's like, you're not doing nothing to them.
I do think that messing with the composition of our atmosphere is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of bad science surrounding it, and I think there's a lot of bad actors trying to leverage the science to go, well, the only way we can solve climate problems is socialism.
Is to put me in charge of you.
Yeah, put me in charge.
Just put me in charge of it. It'll be just fine. It's I'd rather it just
you.
Yeah, I'd rather it just get really hot and just build more smokestacks than let you ruin everything.
There's a very cringy meme I shared privately with a couple people, and basically where the whole conversation regarding climate and nuclear was the result at the very end. So,
I mean, anybody who wants to debate me on climate stuff, I can make a pretty simple argument. It's like, look at the moon, which has no atmosphere, and then look at the Earth, and then explain why the temperatures are different between the two of them. And once you understand the answer to that question, then you're about 90% of the way to knowing everything you need to know. The only question is how much does it take to cause the changes?
Yeah.
What do small, tiny little changes make that big a difference? And you have to look at the different things, not CO2, but also water vapor and all sorts of other things. Climate is incredibly complicated. But we need to get off fossil fuels anyway, so just build more nukes. I'm just kind of tired of this.
Yeah.
Build them nukes. Build them nukes.
We don't want to be dependent on fossil fuels, so just build nukes. And where solar panels work, use them. And where wind works, use it. I don't care. Just solar, wind, and nukes. That covers most of it. And then we need dino juice to make lubricating things for engines and diesel fuel, and I mean, it's fine. It's not a difficult problem, but there's people that seem to think that unless they restructure all of society, that we can't solve climate issues.
Well, not only that, I mean, we're having a shortage on coal, aren't we, right now, if I recall?
Well, if we put those kids back in the coal mine, we'll solve that problem.
Yeah, I was about to say, like
Yeah.
90% of the coal mines in my state are shut down, even though we still have plenty of coal.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we have the shortage.
But in regards to the story, this is what like the biggest part of it is is the censorship. They're acting like publishers, not platforms again.
Yeah.
In blatant disregard, because what now the actual scientists who talk about interglacial cycles and what's known as glacial periods, they're going to get demonetized and not allowed to have ads and monetization and all this stuff, even though they're literally talking about the actual science about it. That's one of the things that is included in this proposal or plan that they're going to enact on Alphabet company products, and it's not just going to be Google and YouTube. I hate it so much. I hate it so much because they started this YouTube specifically. They started on this is a free and open platform. Assassin, Jesus Christ!
Yeah. Keep going. Don't let Assassin distract you.
You derailed me, and don't blame Assassin. I'm not reading chat while I'm talking.
Yeah.
But it's so. There is bad information out there. I agree with you, Harry. But the thing to bring the disinfecting sunlight to that bad information is this good information that's also included in the big amorphous bubble of climate denial. Air quotes there.
Well, this is also them spinning it, right? Calling it climate denial is a way of saying we've established what the truth is, and anybody who says something else is automatically wrong.
Is
completely antithetical and offensive to science.
You bastards.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of scientific facts.
No,
I have no emotional investment in this sort of crap, right? If I end up finding out I'm wrong, okay, I was wrong. I'm
actually happy when I get proven wrong.
Yeah,
by someone bringing up a new study or some new discovery or even just something to fill in my own ignorance. Like here's actual scientific data and stuff that we understand. It's been peer reviewed, blah blah blah. I'm like, wow, my entire view on that topic is now changed. I'm glad. I'm happy. I learned something new. I'm not stuck in my own mental stagnation. It's great.
Yeah, I just don't like censorship, and I don't think people should be
terrible.
afraid of ideas. If the only way you can get your ideas across is to silence the voices that say something different, you're not doing your job. Make your freaking point. It's your job as a science communicator to convince people that you know what you're doing and that something makes sense. You have to be able to do that. And if you can't do that, it's not enough for you to be right. You also have to convince people that you're right, and you have to, because we do live in a democracy and people have the right to be wrong about things. That's part of freedom. Freedom is messy. Sometimes people, there's a lot of people who aren't on board with nuclear stuff. And why are they not on board with nuclear stuff? Because there's a lot of crap that's been said. But I wouldn't try to make the law, or use unofficial non-government organizations to try to force people not to say things against nuclear power. You say something dumb about nuclear power, I'll happily engage in that conversation.
Engage, aka kick your ass.
Yeah, I was
until the smooth brain on the other end starts flinging insults and can't defend his own arguments. Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem with this is that they're so big and so powerful, have so many eyeballs constantly on them. And when any other competition has come up over the years, they get crushed by special interests. Like, it's not Google and YouTube putting out a better product. in some cases, the Google algorithm is actually still pretty freaking amazing. But like video hosting and stuff like that, even competitors who might not be able to compete directly one-on-one with YouTube, they're still crushed through money changing hands behind the scenes, and then political actors get involved, and the media machine to slander competition. It's really egregious, and I mean, just to me on a personal level, just so evil. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I just look at and like, this is Saturday morning cartoon villain, Dr. Evil levels of villainy, and they have so many people convinced that no, this is the right thing.
Yeah, that's everybody's favorite space reptile, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Loses $6 billion in hours as Facebook plunges. Now, this is, of course, a dumb headline, especially for Yahoo Finance, because paper losses on unrealized gains don't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, what is... Okay, so what basically happened was they hired some people who screwed up. They managed to screw up both their DNS and the stuff that basically says, if you want to get to our services, this is how you get here. There's a protocol that happens on the internet that
they couldn't even
called
get in the
BGP.
server rooms.
Yeah, so first you can't figure out how to find the IP, and then you can't figure out how to get to the IP. Congratulations.
Bridge Gateway Protocol? Is that
Border Gateway Protocol?
Border, that's what it is. Border.
And it's actually BGP4 if we're going to get technical about it. The basic edge routers, well, routers that are core routers on the internet know how to get to pretty much everything. It's their job to be able to hand packets off for these things. You know, at your house, you just go, Comcast or whoever will handle it. You just go, here's my default gateway, and you send packets. But a company like Facebook has, you have to say, here's how you get to us to use our services. That all broke. And it's pretty criminal that in 2021, in the current year, that somebody wouldn't manage to competently manage both of those protocols, let alone have them both break in the same week.
Yes.
It's pretty funny, but this whole $6 billion loss thing is just a fiction, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't actual money.
Yeah,
it was
I hate
it was
giving.
stocks.
I hate giving things like that any horsepower, any gasoline involved. That's the sort of thing people need to be educated against paying any attention to.
Well, I don't know if you follow the quartering at all.
Religiously.
Quartering seems like, Jeremy seems like a pretty decent guy, but he does do this. He has a few habits that annoy me. One of them is this thing where he'll follow some story about a stock that corrects by 6%, and then he'll talk about it being destroyed or owned or pwned or he'll use some sort of hyperbolic language about a 6% stock change.
Clickbaity bullshit. Yeah.
It's clickbaity bullshit. That's all it is.
He knows how to make flashy videos that get a lot of eyeballs. He's really good at it. But I just enjoy his attitude as much as anything. But he definitely indulges in hyperbole and overstates things. He's also capable of doing some good work too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What I just love the fact that Tumblr gave Facebook shit that entire day when Facebook broke. It's like, oh, we're the shit of the internet, but look at you morons.
I mean, if Facebook wants to hire me to make their infrastructure not suck, I'm available. Anyway, because this is just basic stuff. There's no excuse for this kind of nonsense.
Oh yeah.
I would be really interested in finding out why, and more not technically why, but as a social thing within Facebook. How was this allowed to happen?
Yep.
Oh, I mean, it was amazing. Like, they couldn't contact the security guard who had the keys to get into the server because he was on the WhatsApp, and the WhatsApp wasn't working because the server was down.
It's the part before that.
It's the cultural lot. And I know I have a friend of mine who's a PhD, really smart guy, lots of experience, and for whatever reason Facebook didn't hire my friend. Now, of course, Facebook could not do that. But, I look at that and I look at other people I know who did or did not get hired. And I just kind of go, I don't understand what your process is for picking out talented people. And clearly you might want to rethink it in light of what has happened to you recently.
I do like Raymond Lewis's comment. At least MySpace was still up on Monday.
That's where all the kids like to put their stuff about their records and things.
Dude, I wish MySpace was still a thing for real.
So a bunch of Twitch streamers got their income numbers revealed, and this doesn't seem like it's a big deal to me.
Not really.
Well, so not really. Although if you can bring up my camera briefly, Harry.
$5
a month.
But
wait
now
to
I don't
see that.
That bitch.
So it's either her or it might. There's a couple of others who've done this as well. But they when they were going through all the reviews of like how much money they make, I guess, per year when doing this leak. Guess what figures we're looking at with some of these people?
Well, I know like Critical Role over 2 years made more than $10 million.
Oh yeah. Well, there's
And
like
that was just from Twitch partnership. That was not anything else, merch, anything else.
Donation,
Oh, yeah.
merchandising. These are strictly Twitch numbers.
And like Hassan Piker, whatever the heck his name is, made like
Piker.
$2 million in 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I think
Such
it's
a good socialist.
Yeah. Well, it's either this person right here, or maybe it's the other one I'm thinking of, where there's
Princess,
like,
what's her name?
Yeah, I think it's Princess. What's her name?
Yeah, whatever her name is, was like making 6 figures a month. Not 6 figures a month. Sorry, 6 figures a year. And and these are the same people who's going like $5 a month. So it's just like
Blaming. claiming that they need money for this or for that, and it's showing like in actuality, well, no, you're making millions a year. You're by no means destitute.
And the thing is like this is leak 1.
I mean, it's hustle, so I mean,
Yeah,
all
this is
more
leak
power
1.
to you,
This is not everything, but it does kind of give a bit more info about all this kind of like it gives you an insight. So this way, when they start begging for money, because like
exactly
like with Critical Role, I wonder how many critters were like. So let me get this straight. We gave you $11 million on Kickstarter to start an animated show, and you all made that in almost 2 years from just
personal partnership income.
Yeah, not from merch, not from anything else. You made like I wonder how many went. What the fuck? Like this? This is dangerous for some of them.
Yeah.
Well, it shows them like what Skep likes to talk about this investment into expanding your brand. And they didn't want any of the risk. They wanted it all floated by Kickstarter when they had the means, the opportunity, everything in the world to invest in their own projects, but they didn't. And that, again, it's not legally wrong.
Yeah.
But it's really bad optics for a lot of these people at the top.
Yeah. Well, the other big thing too that I think I remember hearing from Arch's stream earlier today is they also showed with these leaks that there are channels that are basically listed as these people cannot be banned no matter what they do.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And
that was
like
that's the big one to me.
Yeah, that was actually the big thing. Like the money thing was floated to the top, I think, to cover that. But a lot of people who know how there's like it doesn't matter what they say, they are put on a you cannot ban list.
Yeah, and it's been theorized given their action or lack of action throughout Twitch's history towards certain content creators. This just verified what we basically kind of already guessed.
Yeah.
In saying, yes, XYZ, they are untouchable no matter what they do on the platform. They can as Donald Trump said, they could walk out into the middle of the street, shoot somebody, and they wouldn't get banned.
Yeah, and that's the big info. And also, I think it showed how certain creators get. What was it? I think it showed how they break down the percentile of how they get favored in the ad algorithm to make the more money or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm more interested. I think the big bomb will be in the leak too.
Yeah.
That comes out later, because I think this is just to show you what they make, and then I think the other one's going to show breakdown of like they can do this, they can do that. So
yeah. Well,
it's amazing the effect from this. One sec, Gio. In when you have this transparency, because that seems to be the theme tonight, unintentionally, or maybe it was intentionally, Harry. I don't know. But the overarching theme between almost all these stories is that if there is transparency, the cockroaches scurry.
Yep.
And they try to go in full damage control mode. Sorry, Gio.
Yeah, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Go ahead, Geodes, and then I'm going to switch us to the next thing, and then we're going to talk about fashion. It'll be so exciting for everybody.
The big thing, the big thing with a lot of the stuff is basically too that some of these people have been bleeding subscribers after this. I mean, they really have, and not everybody. But we're starting
because I haven't looked at the Fallout yet.
It's not every single channel, but there have been a few channels that believe that they were, they were looking at, just some guy like them, a stinky ass apartment or something. Finding out that they were like a multi-millionaire and that they actually have like this tiny room with that sparsely furnished, kind of almost in a way to intentionally to help play up that idea that they're not making a lot of money, and now they're some of these people are bleeding subscribers, and we'll see how it goes, but this is kind of interesting to me. So
it is kind of interesting. And we have a late arrival in Sora Luna. She's still muted. So
hello, my Canucky sister.
Hola,
my Canucky sister from another mister.
Yes. All right. So let's see. One more thing here. Just I always like these conversations about, well, Christopher Columbus was a chump, man, because the Vikings, they had it all figured out.
North America's a gigantic continent. Shut up. That's my statement.
So this is why did it just go blank? That's really not helpful.
Is your ad blocker on? Well, no.
Mine is, and I can. There it goes.
Okay, don't touch anything, Gary. Okay, there is no reasonable doubt here. A research team find at Yale proves that the 15th century Vinland map is a 20th century fake. So this thing basically was found in the mid-1960s, and they're claiming that it's like sort of the first map of the world that shows colonies in North America. Turns out, no, it's a fake.
Shocking. Shocking, I tell you.
Inside the profession of anthropology, Harry, that has never been a well-regarded map. It's always been controversial.
Yeah, well, now we know. They basically studied it and found that the ink dated to the 20th century, and also they thought it was a little suspicious that they figured out that Greenland was an island.
Yeah, they knew what the northern part of Greenland. That's one of my professors actually talked about that map and said, how did they know what the northern part of Greenland looked like?
Yeah, darn good question. So I think Sora and Serenity, I can't remember if it was both of you or either of you that sent this stuff.
That was all Sora.
This is all Sora.
Oh, I sent that one, I think.
Okay.
I know about it because of another YouTuber who did a video on it. But
so there's this thing, the next fashion trend is clothes that don't exist. Tell me more about this bold new world we live in.
This is part of the NFT trend. So basically purchasing for real money a digital item. And we're not talking about 50 cents here or there. This is like in the tens to thousands of dollars for a digital piece of clothing that you send your photo into a company and they will poorly Photoshop it on you. Yeah. And then you put it up on your blog, your Instagram, etc. And the purpose of this, one of the ideas they're putting out there is you're spending less money on clothes you don't need
and creating less waste.
And it's greener for the environment.
You'll own nothing and you will like it.
Well,
So
like,
you have some of these are really cool, like very like sci-fi, gravity defying. Like you're able to basically turn yourself into all sorts of really cool looking things because you're having these. It's fake, right? It's just a superimposed image on your photo.
it's what everybody wants Cyberpunk 2077 to be.
Yeah, it's a very very good description.
Just
and
another amusement.
It's amazing because if you go onto the actual site that I linked, that's like, the one Serenia was talking about as well.
Do Express, this one?
Yeah.
DressX.
Well, which one would you like? Here's the first one you linked.
Express, this is the one I linked. So you can sort of see the before would be the photo that model, what was sent in, and then after is their poorly Photoshop. And that dress, quote unquote, is probably like $50, $60, $100. And now I'm sure that price is also due to the fact that they do Photoshop it on you, so that you have to pay someone to do that. But that price is also the price of the artist. And the thing is that there's no one's saying that you have sole copyright ownership of this.
Yep.
Item
and you have to pay per photo. It's not, you don't own it like to put on it, to have them put on anything as many times as you want. It is per photo. So if you do like one of those,
submit the photo to them to put this item of clothing on you, and then you receive it.
Yep.
So you can't even use this as like your HoloLive identity thing. So you can't.
Correct.
That seems so, because if you were selling it to people who wanted to do like HoloLive stuff, I could sort of see it making sense. Like, here's the design for your hybrid cat girl avatar thing. Whatever.
No, at that point it's just like commission an artist who can do that, and then you own that commission, Yeah,
exactly.
That's what you would do, but no, this is not that.
That kind of makes sense. This is just like, while we're at it, why don't you just Photoshop me into a picture of Niagara Falls so I can pretend I went on vacation? That would be fun for everybody.
Well, I do know that part of the appeal with this too is that it doesn't obey the laws of physics.
Yeah, some of the moving ones are amazing. Like, they're cool looking. But the thing is that the variation between people who Photoshop the image is massive, because some of them are good. Like, some of the Photoshoppers are really good, and some of them are shit. Like that.
This looks like a bad cat. This is like a thing you'd get on a t-shirt shop. Find your design on this t-shirt. Also available in wife beater.
I mean, in following the trend of like Instagrams, where I mean, we're already kind of looking at half of the people on there behind filters or surgeries or whatever. I think the next evolution of something like this is another type of filter where you can buy this digital representation of clothing and it will act as a filter. So like, hey, here I am at the park in my $5,000 dress or whatever, or my $10,000 suit, or those kinds of things. I think that is where the technology needs to get for this to really take off.
The next step is the whole AR thing, right?
Yeah.
And which newer
augmented
reality.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. And so that is where this is going. You're correct. Is exactly where they want to go push this. The problem with that is you need to have the ones that provide the best for augmented reality recording is obviously the newer phones get better and better. And also, again, having that time and a good app, I guess, and all that sort of stuff. What we're looking right now, this is one of the websites that you can shop at, and their actual app, you're able to try it on yourself at home, so you can do some of the clothing items, and it's just crap. It really is.
Yeah, the app looks terrible.
It superimposes over you and supposedly follows your movements. If you want to see a little bit tell me where actually to go. Working, Sophia Nygaard, she is a YouTuber, recently published a video demonstrating DressX and the processes. That's where I heard about it the first time.
Yeah, same.
Well, this is amazing.
I just like the idea of a bunch of like people either dressed up in like green screen outfits like you see for movie sets, or like on a beach at like a nudist colony, all wearing VR headsets, looking at each other wearing these clothes.
Well, it's like what Functional was talking about with like an app and with a filter and stuff like that. I would not have a problem with this kind of stuff if it's like how filters are now, where it states it's a filter. Mm-hmm. My issue is that there will be people who, because there's the more avant-garde stuff, there's the weird stuff, there's the stuff you could never actually buy in real life, and then there's the stuff that's basically a Photoshopable version of like high-end stuff. So it's one of those. It's kind of like catfishing in a way.
Yeah.
Because if there's no way to know, especially if the Photoshop gets real good, some Photoshop, and let's face facts, there's some Photoshoppers out there who are amazing. Mm-hmm. If it gets to that point and there's no way to mark it, this is going to make the mental destruction that people have from like FOMO and stuff like that from social media 1,000 times worse.
And just it's Sophia Nygaard. I wore digital clothes for a week.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, I'll post that in chat if people want to check that out, because I'm gonna probably check that out myself later.
It was really interesting because she even she put it on her Instagram to see like how much people would notice, but she also kind of tore it apart a little bit, where she's like, well, you can kind of see there's a problem with the neck and stuff like that. So she wasn't like going, this is the amazing stuff ever, and so I respect her for doing that.
More like a social experiment than like a promotion.
Yeah, it's usually that kind of stuff she does. But yeah, it's very interesting.
It's cool because of the stuff that we've been seeing technologically with, mocap. We've seen the Joe Rogan video, where it's the guy who looks, nothing like Joe. I mean, he's still a white male of the same age, but they put the filter on him, and we're getting pretty close to being able to do entirely fresh, real looking avatars in whatever NFT clothing they want, however they want to look. It's going to be inescapable. And I think Serenity, you touched on something with the mental destruction. We've already seen the effects of photoshopping and filters and stuff, especially to younger women.
Oh yeah,
in the social media space, and the expanding rates of self-harm that has stemmed directly from that. We can draw direct lines to the effects that this stuff is happening, and it's only getting worse. I mean, the technology, I don't want to say the technology is only getting worse. It's the applications of the technology.
Yeah, it's the application of the
technology getting worse to exacerbate these things we already see that are going on. And it's like, hey guys, there's actual issues that we can draw lines to of mental health, especially with certain groups. We can pin them down, and we're doing nothing about it.
Well, it's like
as a society, and not even that, but not even talking about what can we do to sort of help these people not get into those mindsets of severe depression.
Yeah, and it's going to make things worse. Like it's good.
If we don't nip it in the bud,
it won't be nipped.
I don't think there's anything you can do about it.
Yeah, there's.
I don't think there's any nippage that's going to happen here. I think this is just welcome to the future.
Giggity.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Sorry.
No.
That door. I had to kick it in.
Well, that's one of your jobs. You are the director of Giggity. So.
Well, I say that, but we have again transparency. Like you said, there are restrictions in place right now where it has to say this is
a filter.
This is a filter. This is digitally enhanced in some way.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's pretty obvious.
No, they do not. They do not have that yet. So if the Photoshop is really good, no one's going to know.
Sure.
Well, the big thing will probably be is if there's actual people creating these outfits and then displaying them. The way you'll know, honestly, is by the manufacturing label, if you will. I imagine that's how it's going to end up being the case. But I was also going to say I could probably make a joke of back in my day the craziest thing we could do with Photoshop was back in my day the craziest thing we could do with Photoshop was turning a piece of pizza into a woman. So
Geodes, I remember, gosh, it was like 1995-ish, and a friend of mine was working on this presentation, and he needed to update some materials for this presentation. There were a bunch of SGI workstations, and they were trying to show what had happened over the next year. So he realized that instead of taking pictures of the new equipment for the promotional thing that he was putting together, all he needed to do was just go in and change the color scheme so that the indigo SGI workstations suddenly turned into SGI crimsons.
Lord.
I remember us all patting ourselves on the back of, well, we avoided an entire photo shoot by just editing this picture. Peak technology. I mean, it was one of those weird realizations, because we realized that in a sense, you were falsifying a record, but you were falsifying it to update it to current reality. And once you realize that all it takes is a color picker tool and then some changing and a little bit of a gradient mask to suddenly make it look like you spent a bunch of money on something, which they did. They did spend money. They did buy the Crimson workstations. So it's true, but it's like a fake thing representing real reality. And once you're kind of on that slippery slope, it's like, well, where could this lead? Done. Well, here we are 25 years later.
Yeah, fuck, that's what she is.
Yeah, reality is really, really malleable. I think AR stuff is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, AR Minecraft is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, I think AR is going to be really, really fantastic. I think it's got a lot of possibility. I mean, most of what they're trying to use to sell it to businesses is kind of dumb. Like in this giant warehouse where they store the Ark of the Covenant, you want your new Shmooey to find it. So they have their AR goggles, and then the phone sort of has arrows that say, go here, turn left at the Lance of Longinus, and then go down this hallway to get to the other thing.
As a cinephile, I can see this technology and the advancements in this technology being some really, really good stuff. Like, you no longer would have to really take into consideration, oh, is this the person the right look? Because we can tailor this person's look on screen to whatever the hell we want. But now they're getting by strictly on, hey, this person, S tier acting.
Yeah, but that's also a terrifying thought.
I think it's great. I think it's one of the few great applications. I mean, hell, we could even go back and revisit Casablanca and make a sequel to that. How bad could that be?
Dare.
I think we're going to get enough of animated Princess Leia and all whatever Star Wars reboots they end up doing.
But Harry, in Mandalorian, they recreated Luke Skywalker.
It was young. It was young Luke Skywalker, the one that wasn't all jaded and angry, living on an island.
Beautifully, though. Well, I mean, yes, they still needed to have someone who had similar look to them. We're not there that we can just create an entire realistic, believable-looking person. But it was there. It's getting there. It's really, like, I think for the movie industry or the entertainment industry, it's kind of a boon. But it's also a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Well, there's also been conversations too about actors selling the rights to their face and voice effectively.
Yeah, because I mean that's essentially what. Oh my god, I almost called her the wrong name. Carrie Fisher did. She signed it over. It's like, but she had specifications, and it's up to her estate to hold Lucasfilms and Disney to the specifications of what it is. But she sold it and said, do what you want. I hit mute for some stupid reason.
They could remake Rebel Without a Cause with a virtual Sal Mineo, a virtual James Dean, and a virtual Natalie Wood. Sorry. Anyway, I think we have reached the natural conclusion of tonight's show. Does anybody have anything else they would like to share before we say adios for the evening?
I actually do.
Go ahead.
I had there were a couple of quotes that came to mind in talking about money, and probably the big one was from Will Rogers. He said, too many people spend money they earn to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. If you're doing that, just stop. Let's leave you with that.
Yes. Anybody else?
Sure.
I'm good.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Functional.
I said I'm good.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's good.
Indeed.
When you look at the dark side, careful you must be, for the dark side looks back.
Damn it.
He was functionally Yoda.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, I'm going to nip this show in the bud. Good night, everybody. The zoo's closed.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.